Hello class, this is the second part of content for the Time Hopewell cycle, and today we're going to be talking a bit about myth and belief. So first of all, myth is foundation tales. They're stories that explain natural things, histories of a people, gods, and other beings. You're probably familiar with the myths of Greece and Rome because we study those in English class, and also you might know some of the Norse myths, things like that. And then belief is what people accept as truth. Often includes mythologies, and it's kind of a fine line with belief between religion and mythology. Now, we don't really know what the Hopewell believed or what their foundation myths were because there isn't any kind of written language. So we have to guess about these things based on artifacts and also based on some of the oral histories that show up in what are current Native American tribes like the Iroquois that talk about their ancestors, and their ancestors would be the Mississippi culture, and before that the Hopewell, and before that the Adena. And what you're seeing over here, that darling little cat, which is actually a cougar or a puma, is a pipe, and it's carved of pipestone, which is native up there, and it is one of their special animals. So what an artifact is an object that has some significance. It could be having historical significance. It could have cultural significance. And we're going to look at the little person artifact, which is important, and other human figures. Something that's known as a ray figure, which is a singular figure, and it's very important. The animal pipes and the deer shaman, which some of you are working on for this art project. Over on the right, you can see one of the Hopewell sculptures, and you could probably guess what it is. It's a mother, and she is feeding her baby. She's holding the baby. She's sitting with her legs curled up. And from these little sculptures, that's how we kind of know how they dressed, because cloth and fabric tends to wear away over time. But here we can see the hairstyle. And the majority of their figures, nobody was wearing anything on top, and everybody wore kind of a skirt. So the figures of people, they carved people that were important. And this is a tobacco pipe. They did have tobacco, which is a curious thing because they did have a type of tobacco that originated in South America. There are native North American tobaccos, but this particular genetic strand that they found in the excavations goes back to South American roots. Anyway, this is a tobacco pipe, and it's a figure of a little person, and it shows characteristics of genetic dwarfism, such as the long torso and shorter legs, and it matched the skeleton that was buried with it who had dwarfism. People that were special or different in their bodies or things of that nature, they were viewed as being very spiritual and very powerful. And you can see some of the characteristics of the figure over here that show up in other special kind of art and artifacts. The figure has gauged ears with the ear spools. These are just like when our culture gauges the ears and you stretch out the earlobe, and then they would insert a large piece of metal. The hair is divided in half by a part and kind of braided or shaved back both sides. His loincloth, if you look at the design there, it's a serpent. Think about the serpent mound. And then on his back, he has a bustle. That's what you call things that you tie to your butt. And it's a turkey tail. And this is very similar to the feathered bustles that are worn by certain dancers during native powwows and ceremonies. These are some of the carvings of women. And this one is really curious because she is holding something that looks like a tablet. And some people think that they actually might have had a written language at some point, but it sort of is lost. But it was limited and written on stone as much as we know of. But if you look here at the lines on the tablet, they are curvy and they're also kind of echoing that serpent figure. And you can tell her hairstyle. The figure here in the middle, she is holding her child and probably nursing him as well. But there's her arm, there's the baby's head and shoulder, baby butt, legs. And then this is another seated woman. She does not have a child, but you can see her jewelry and her hairstyle and her skirt. So the Ray figure. This is found at the base of the largest burial mound in the Newark group. That's the location where the Great Circle is and the Octagon. And this figure that you see here at right, it's unique because it shows the transformation of a bear and a person. So there's like two schools of thought. Some people think it's a person that's putting a bear skin on, like pulling the bear head over their head, like a mask. Or that it's a bear that has a person emerging from it, like it's turning into the person. The bear is determined to be a black or brown bear, which are bears that are native to that area. And when you look at the video, you'll be able to see this that's on the lap of the person. It is a head. And it's not a 3D head, it's a 2D head. And it's a very kind of South American Mayan Aztec type head looking. But that's just kind of reading into it. But if you look at the figure, you can see, this is the person part and the bear head on top. And then the arms, this arm and hand is becoming more person-like. Just like the legs are becoming person-like, but the other arm is very bear. And the different sides of it, some sides it looks more bear than person. Some people, some sides it looks more person than bear. But look at the little video of it and watch it turn around. They made animal pipes. As we talked about earlier, tobacco did exist. It was used for ceremonial purposes. It was special. It's not like they were sitting around smoking a pack a day. And the animal pipes were carved in the shape of power animals like bears and wolves and cougars and birds. But they also had other animals as well. And the way they were smoked is you can see like on the otter and the beaver where the bowl for the tobacco is on top. And then at the bottom, there's the hole, and that's where your mouth would go. So the animal would always be facing you. And because of later Native American beliefs, it's pretty much standard kind of belief that the smoke from tobacco and the air helps to transfer the life force and the spirit and some of their powers to you. So these would be used in that kind of traditional way in order to be connected to the spirit of this animal. And they are all carved of pipestone. So here you see a wolf, the beaver with his adorable teeth and eyes, one of the otters and the bird, And they found a lot of these. And this is a hawk. There's a lot of hawks and those type of birds. Here are some more. A raven, a panther, and that was a little more complex. This is another hawk with its head turned. A frog, see its frog eyes. An otter that has a fish in its mouth. And then this thing over here that some people call it frog, but I think it looks more like an alligator. Now, talking about the deer shaman, some of you are working with this for your design project, and a couple things. The word shaman is not Native American. A lot of people think it is. It's actually a Russian term, and it's a holy man in a tribe in Russia, but it's a word that's been appropriated and used across different cultures to refer to somebody who is holy or spiritual or wise. They found in burials of people were buried intact, meaning they were important. Remember, regular people got cremated. These headdresses. And they were, you can see in this picture, the kind of drawing picture, where the skull is and the teeth. And then this kind of part in the middle would be the fractured part where the headdress was, with the antlers coming off. This is one that is sitting on a mannequin. The antlers were covered with copper very soft, pounded out thin, and then wrapped around it. Sometimes instead of antlers, they use sticks and things instead inside the copper. And they showed different stages of growth. So going everywhere from the spike antlers that are just short and, one little thing coming up that young deer have, to the branched antlers of big bucks. And then you can see with the shaman too, he has some other things going on. He's got large, very large copper ear spools in, and then necklaces that are made of shells and bones and stones and claws and teeth and different things. So your assignment for this, you have two choices. Well, you have a choice of what you want to work with. So you need your Chromebook so you can look up reference images. You can use traditional drawing images, or if you want to work 3D, you could use Sculpey or Play-Doh or baker's clay. I have a recipe for baker's clay over here. It's super easy to make. If you're at school, I can give you a little Sculpey, and maybe you have some Play-Doh around the house. So your directions, since animals were very important to the Hopewell culture, and figures that are powerful called effigies. So think about what animal effigy do you identify with? And it can be one of the Hopewell animals, or it could be a different animal. And then draw it or sculpt it and photograph it and upload. Okay? Now, if you want to make baker's clay, if you're at home, it's super easy. You mix equal amounts of salt and flour. And since these are really small for this assignment, so just use like a 1/4 cup of salt and flour is probably best. 1/2 cup if you want to go a little larger. And then just start adding a little bit of water. You want to add just enough to create a dough that isn't super dry, but you don't want to make it super sticky. If it's sticky, add a little more flour to it. And then you use this just like clay, shape it into your effigy. You could take a picture of it as it is, or if you want to, you can bake it. You bake it at around 350 for an hour. These are small, so it may not take that long. Okay? So it's a choice. So again, what you're doing, you are drawing your animal effigy, the animal that you connect with, and you can draw it or you can sculpt it out of something. Okay? And photograph it and upload.